Welcome to the Clinical Care Options Infectious Disease Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Blanchette. Today's episode is the last in a 4-part series on long-acting antiretroviral medications for both the treatment and prevention of HIV infection. This series features international panel discussions among Dr. Cristina Mussini from Italy, Dr. Yvonne Galise from the United Kingdom, and Dr. Daryl Tan from Canada, all led by Dr. Babafemi Taiwo from Chicago, Illinois. In this episode, our expert faculty share their thoughts on what will be needed from future long-acting HIV treatment and prevention strategies to address populations who are not eligible for currently available long-acting options. The faculty also discuss important considerations for leveraging long-acting HIV approaches to address care inequities across different populations. For more information about our guests and for additional online education on this topic, please visit the link in the show notes. So now let's turn it over to Dr. Taiwo and the faculty panel.
So it's always wonderful to share a stage with my distinguished colleagues. And today we'll talk about the future of long-acting HIV prevention and treatment. We'll try to address what's still needed, particularly to further address inequities that still, unfortunately, we have in our field. So I'm going to first call on Yvonne, Dr. Galise, to really talk about potential for even longer acting options than the ones that we have today.
Thank you, Dr. Taiwo. I think this is really exciting because obviously we've got 2 monthly injectables at the moment. But even with cabotegravir and rilpivirine, the plan is potentially to have some kind of newer formulations so that doses could be given every 6 to 12 monthly. We also have data from Calibrate and Capella, so in treatment resistant, but also treatment experienced patients, so 2 types of patients, showing lenacapavir currently with an oral combination for every 6 months. And I think if we have lenacapavir, potentially having something else that's injectable every 6 months, that could be where the future is. But we know that lenacapavir works not only in treatment experienced patients, but also in highly treatment resistant patients. Very small numbers, but really exciting data showing that even in that group of patients, we could have success. So that's currently where we are at the moment. But obviously, we know that other formulations and injectables may be on their way.
Right, that's outstanding. Thank you so much. And I think in this future, to couple even and improve the options for our patients, it would be nice to have things that can be self-administered or things that can have improved portability. We don't have that yet with the cabotegravir rilpivirine. Can we have a comment maybe from Dr. Tan? Can I call you Daryl?
Of course.
I'm sure you did. All right.
Thanks so much, Babafemi. Absolutely. I mean, I think this is something that many of our patients enthusiastically ask us about when they first learn that it's injectable. They say, oh, maybe I can do it myself. Maybe they have a healthcare provider in the family and they think, oh, my partner could inject it for me and that'll make things so much more easily. But of course, that's not a recommended route or a feasible route for administering a long-acting injectable cabotegravir and rilpivirine. We do have experience, way back when in our field with, self-administered and enfuvirtide, of course. But, we certainly don't want to go back to that twice a day subcutaneous injection sort of regimen. We're looking for longer acting rather than more frequent administration. So certainly there's room for improvement. Many of us had, of course, hoped that, the long-acting oral islatravir might have held promise in this regard, or even monthly pill for treatment or prevention. But of course, that development program has held up quite significantly by some challenges. So the future, we're optimistic that things will come down the pipeline that could be self-administered and make it easier for a broader range of patients to use these agents, but we're not quite there yet with the current armamentarium.
Right. Thanks so much, Daryl. And a couple of points. I mean, certainly, we've heard about the interest in having high intramuscular injection of cabotegravir or rilpivirine. So that's something that we're keen to learn more about. And also the islatravir issue. I saw, I think a couple of weeks ago or thereabout, this announcement from the manufacturers of islatravir that they will actually restart the phase 3 program in which they're combining islatravir with doravirine at a lower dose of the islatravir. But that's not our interest today, right? So that's still once a day. But they in fact also announced that the phase 2 program that would include the weekly islatravir at a lower dose, now at a lower dose, combined with lenacapavir at a lower dose, will be resumed as well. So I think that program will be resuscitated or has been resuscitated. And so we're keen to see what this weekly thing shows us in the near future, at least in the phase 2. And so I'm going to turn to Christina now and say, Christina, these things about INSTI resistance, we've gotten very used to regimens that patients take forever without any resistance. And we're sort of intolerant of even low levels of resistance, as maybe was seen with an NNRTI and also INSTI with the option that we have now. So what are your thoughts about that? Do you see a future where we'll have long-acting agents that will have resistance characteristics that are just like integrase plus NRTIs that we have today orally?
No, actually, I think that we will pay a little price in terms of resistance for the present option that we have for long-acting, because either cabotegravir or rilpivirine have shown to can fail and select resistance, as also lenacapavir. So I think that probably we should be very, very clear to our patient, telling them that the magical world they were living in with zero resistance, when they fail, probably it's over. Obviously, we are talking about a small percentage of patients who will fail, but and an even smaller one who will develop resistance. But it's something that turn us back to PIs, because if a patient will fail these two options, he should be put on. He should be prescribed with boosted PIs, because we don't have other options now. So I'm wishing that in the future, since we are talking about the future, we can have both the long action and also the high genetic barrier that we are used to now with the oral combination.
Right. So that's sort of a dream that we have, and hopefully we'll all get there, where we have long-acting therapies that are not only longer in terms of duration of activity, but also have a robust resistance barrier that matches or maybe someday even surpass what we have today, right? Nothing stops us from dreaming. Yes. Now, I know, Yvonne, you're really passionate about women and access of long-acting therapies to women. Do you want to comment on pregnancy and how this innovation can be democratized to pregnant women as well?
So phase 2 and phase 3 trials of long-acting cabotegravir and rilpivirine excluded women at risk of pregnancy. So there were 26 women who became pregnant during the study. And we do have some follow-up data on those women. And this is really more or less all the data that we have. And from the total of 26 women, there were 11 live births, and then there were 15 non-live births. So 6 first trimester spontaneous abortions or miscarriages, 1 second trimester miscarriage, 7 terminations, and 1 ectopic pregnancy. And there was 1 congenital abnormality, which was ptosis, reported in the live births, so from the 11 live births. So that's the data that we have from clinical trials. The other source of information for pregnant women living with HIV is the antiretroviral pregnancy registry, which we all submit data voluntarily to. And again, there's very limited data there. So up until July 31st, 2021, we have information on 2 live births reported with 1 unspecified defect in one of the infants. So it's not a neural tube defect, which I know was the worry that we had previously with another INSTI, so dolutegravir. So we're not seeing a safety signal emerging for cabotegravir, but we really don't have good information as yet. Rilpivirine, we have more information, but we don't have enough yet to say that combination of cabotegravir, rilpivirine together in a long-acting combination is safe.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we'll stay tuned on that, awaiting more information. Now, there's so many other important populations for whom long-acting therapy has really not been an option right now because of the way the drug was developed, etc. And I'm going to mention 6 of them, or perhaps just 5 of them, and then ask Daryl to just pick any one of them that he would like to comment on. And these are the different subgroups. Treatment-naive persons, we know that right now they're not covered. How about viremic treatment-experienced persons, youth, people with HBV co-infection, and people with transmitted NNRTI or insulin resistance? Is there any one of these populations that you'd like to comment on?
Sure. Well, there's so much to comment on here, but maybe I'll just comment on youth briefly. I mean, this is a population in whom we all know, whether ourselves inheriting them as adult providers from the adolescent years or just from our pediatric colleagues, that there's always going to be challenges with adherence to any regimen, whether it's an HIV regimen or another chronic medical condition that requires treatment. So having options that can really meet the lives of young people, of adolescents, where so much is changing in their world and their lives, is really vital. And fortunately, there will be data forthcoming. We know that there's a large MOCA, it's called trial. I think it's more options for children and adolescents or something like this, looking at long-acting injectable cab with rilpivirine, that we're optimistic that we'll see results that are similarly encouraging to what has led to the licensure of those drugs in adults. And again, the same holds true on the prevention side of things, where we hope that long-acting cabotegravir could be a good PrEP option for populations, administered as infrequently as every 2 months. Maybe that is something that could really be fit into a challenging adolescent schedule. And
Yvonne, do you want to pick?
So with the treatment viremic and with people with resistance, I know we've talked about them, but we do have some data. So we have lenacapavir data, don't we, from Capella, very small numbers of patients, looking at those 2 different groups of patients. So patients who have a viral load greater than 400 with 3 or 4 drug class resistance, being randomized to lenacapavir or other treatment and placebo. And basically, this is not a group of individuals we would ordinarily reach for this therapy for based on what we have currently. But in the future, where we have individuals who we don't potentially have another option for, or we're worried about PI adherence, so having to take an oral drug every day, we have small numbers of data to show that even when there are no active drugs in the optimized background regimen for an individual, giving them lenacapavir can cause virological suppression. So really, really small data, but actually this is very exciting and will be a group of people who we will always need to have that other option for. And oral treatment may not be an option for those individuals. So, this is data that suggests that we may be able to look at this in larger numbers of individuals who potentially have no other options, where this may be an option for them in the future.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. And now, just in the last few moments that we have, are there ways for long-acting options to expand access to currently underserved populations? We're talking about racial and ethnic minorities, transgender people, and people living in poverty. So maybe just 15-second comments from each person. Daryl, go first.
Sure. I don't know about 15 seconds, but I'll make a quick comment about how I think obviously this really comes down to implementation, right? And implementation, science itself is a field of rigorous research that really requires a lot of attention, equal, if not maybe even more than some of the clinical research sometimes, because we've got great tools, we need to put them into action. I want to draw this very quick analogy to another new technology that's arisen with great potential in the last few years, for which there were, again, major equity concerns, and that's COVID vaccines. There's beautiful evidence that's been done by great researchers demonstrating that even when this new tool came about, and we recognized that we needed to ensure it was reaching those who were most affected by this infectious disease, in that case, COVID, here we're talking about HIV, there were really bleak inequities in just even the geographic locations. in which COVID vaccines were first available. And even when efforts were made to make them available, for instance, in high incidence settings, sometimes the profile of the populations who were able to seek it out, independently go and access it, were folks who did have more socioeconomic privilege. So we need to be really thoughtful in our implementation about this injection, a long-acting injectable, cabotegravir, rilpivirine, or whatever the future may hold, about not only prescribing it to the right patients, but making sure that we're thoughtful about ensuring that it is literally physically available, and of course reimbursed. But even with that hurdle passed, we need to put it in, partner with pharmacies in hard-hit areas, partner with community organizations that may have longstanding relationships to bring the technology to folks who might otherwise have just challenges participating in the more traditional routes of providing our treatment options.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That's terrific. Christina?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that, I see only a duty from our side, from doctors, clinicians, and hospital, to organize themselves and to organize the delivery of these drugs in order to allow everybody who need them to have them. So it's really an for us, at least in Italy. I think that if we can deliver these drugs also outside of the hospital, making the life of the patient simpler, this will be a turning point, I think.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Yvonne?
So I guess for me, as well as implementation, I think education is really important for patients, because there are large groups of people living with HIV who don't know anything about injectable therapy. They don't know what it involves. They don't know the advantages or the disadvantages. Therefore, they don't even know whether or not they want to avail of this therapy. So I think engaging the community as much as possible and trying to engage as many individuals within the community, so not just one particular group. So trying to reach out, using voluntary organizations, using activists to try and encourage education will mean that when we have the ability to implement these services for patients, that patients are aware of them and can avail of them.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. Thanks, Daryl. Thanks, Christina. And I think we can all agree that the future is actually now. Right, we are living a future right now, but this future can be further extended to meet the goals that are currently unmet by the currently available therapeutic option. So on that note, I'd like to thank all of you and thank our listeners for a terrific time.
Thank you, Dr. Taiwo and faculty panel, for sharing your insights with us. And thank you for listening. Look out for more episodes in this series at clinicaloptions.com/HIV.